And then what part of the feeding regime can we kind of say, oh, it's just the treats, or it's just the quotient of food, or it leads us nicely? Ooh, no, we're going to talk about different types of food later, but let's stick to treats or food. I think treating has to be dealt with, doesn't it?
I think, I mean, I think at the end of the day, the food is partly main meal and partly treats and extras. And in terms of associations, there are, there've been various studies, and the studies are inconsistent for dogs as to whether a particular type of food is a particular risk. Different people have their opinions. I think too much of any food is one of the key things, whatever the food is, but there hasn't been a particular association in dogs with a particular type of food as of yet. The treats and the extras, one of the challenges with those is that most owners don't see them as food, because they see them as very small extra food and it's inconsequential. And so it's usually they're meeting the requirements with a main meal, and all of those are then on top of that food. So it's always extras. And particularly if you've got a small dog, what we may think of as a tiny little piece of cheese is equivalent to a much larger block. And so I think people probably don't realize that those treats and extras add up. Obesity is not a condition that develops overnight. It happens very slowly, so it doesn't take much of a portion beyond what they need over time to start playing its part.
Yeah, and I definitely read somewhere that the treat industry has gone through the roof in the last 5 to 10 years. Like, no longer is it just a section of a pet shop, it is the pet shop. And the marketing and the strategies and the color schemes and the way that they're promoted, they've been normalized, that you are expected to treat your pets. Whereas when I grew up, my mum and dad, very strict. The dog would get fed at that point of the day, and that was it. And there wasn't all these tidbits and treats and these added purchases. But now there is definitely a feeling that when you buy your food, you buy some more, don't you? Or please disagree with me, but that's what I kind of got the impression of.
I think it's a growing area. Now, I think treating is a natural part of pet ownership, and I certainly wouldn't want to discourage that, because it's one of the ways we show our love. I think for me, the main thing is we need to keep it in proportion. And I think I agree with you, there's a lot of extras out there which are unnecessary, and that they're not necessarily going to supply a lot of essential nutrients, but they're just designed almost to be our way of showing love. That things like the Prosecco for dogs, or and doggy beer and all of these, and which I think is that's where it's probably taking it a step too far. The classic rule for me, if I'm giving people advice on treats, is to limit them to a maximum of 10% of a dog's activity. You need to take them into account. So you need to feed less of your main meal if you're feeding treats, but keep it to less than 10%. One of my major rules for nutrition is to ensure that you're feeding something that's complete and balanced. And most commercial diets have a safety net of about 10%. So if you're feeding 90% of what you should feed and then 10% of treats, the diet should still remain in balance from a nutrient point of view. So it's the excess, I think, which is the worry, rather than a particular type of treat, just like it's not necessarily a particular type of food if you're ensuring you're feeding the right amount and you're weighing it